Hello, screenwriters. Welcome to the Writing for Screens Screenwriting Step-by-Step series number 19. My name is Glenn Gers. I am going to be taking you through the process of how I write a script from rough idea to finished script. We're working on a pilot script for an hour-long drama thriller rom-com called the Untitled Podcaster Killer Project at the moment. I am very excited to be here because I have got some cool stuff to do today. So let's get right to it. If you have questions that you would like to ask, I am open to ask them. Hello, Wolf Powers is here. I am happy to answer questions. What I am going to be doing is answering them at the end. I love to hear them. Please ask them. If you are here live, ask them as I go. I will jot them down, but I want to be able to have these screenwriting step-by-steps actually show you screenwriting step-by-step, and they're getting too confused with the Ask Me Anythings. So I'm going to do those separately at the end. So, if you are watching this on video, not live, you can ask a question by going to writingforscreens.com and clicking on Contact Me on pretty much any page. That will open up a form where you can send me an email or ask me in the comments of any of my videos. I will be happy to that message will get directly to me, and I will add it into the flow for the next episode that I can fit it into. Good. Okay. Let us get right into this, because what I have been doing is working on the outline. We are doing something here. I am going to quickly change my desktop because I forgot to do that. And I like a more neutral desktop for you guys instead of various photos and images that I usually have. Sorry about that. Okay, the main thing that I realized is it is time. Hello, Troy David Films. It is time to start organizing all these thoughts and notes into a structure. That is the crucial step by which you go from I want to write a script to I am able to write a script. And the way you do that is in the outline. You throw everything you can down into these two documents, the outline and the overview. The overview is what I guess some people would call the Bible. It would turn into it. If you actually got to make the show, it would become the Bible. It's the basic overview, the big facts of the story. But where you really work out the structure and the details is in the outline. And that is the key step that we have not started doing yet. So let's do it. I am going to make this harder for you to read so that it is easier for me to work on. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to make it bigger. It's bigger so that I can see what I'm doing. I had it before set to where you guys could read it well, but I could only get a little narrow slice of the document. And truthfully, we need to get the flow. We need to get all the steps. So the first thing I've done is put the first thing in the first position. What I'm going to try and do now is go through all of the scenes and ideas that we have and put them into a rough order. It is very important to remember that an outline is a list of scenes. It is a way that you can imagine your script without having to write the whole thing right at that moment. You can just, outline is a list of scenes. And that's what I'm going to work on now, the list of scenes. So, getting back to this thing. The first scene, I had already started to think about the idea that we're going to open by establishing. I'm very sorry. trash trucks outside. I bet you can hear that. I will just talk over it. First scene, I wanted to establish the mystery, the suspense, the threat, and also introduce us to our victim who is going to be murdered. Just like dive right into it. There is, by the way, a theory that you should start with normal, that you create, that there's a dramatic structure which you have to use, in which you start with a happy, normal situation, and then something, quote, disturbs it, and that creates the drama. That is certainly a way. It's honestly the way that old plays were written at the beginning of the 19th century. And that's when this rule was developed, because movies very much came out of theater from that time. But the truth is, that's just a way that plays were written. There's lots of great stories that don't go that way. I personally find it very difficult to sit through that opening sequence of normal. It's got to be a really interesting normal, and usually if it's really interesting, usually it's not. Usually it's sort of safe and boring, and then you bring in the drama, and by then I've checked out. So I like to plunge right into the story, get to what's interesting, and figure out ways to lay in the information you want to set up later. So I want to start. This is a story about a murder. Let's start with the murder. So we need to establish George. George is the podcaster who will be murdered because he has gotten a clue to a cold case killer. So that is what I've got here in this first scene, that we see George doing the podcast. This is really important. Try to get as many layers of meaning and information and emotion into each scene as you can. Each scene will have one key thing that it's doing. In this case, it is the opening. It is introducing us to certain things. And the key thing it's doing is setting up George to die. But within that, you can then add other layers. For instance, we can add in the layer of podcasting, which is going to become very important. It's the world of our characters. They are all wannabe podcasters. So by showing George working on his podcast, we meet George, we meet the case, because that's what he's podcasting about, and we give the audience that world, that idea of this person recording by themselves, creating this set of sounds and words that will become a podcast. So you try to do as many things as you can in a scene while always having one central thing that you are trying to accomplish. That is my personal rule for how I keep scripts cool and interesting, and also deal with the compression needed. Most scenes can carry a couple of layers if you know what the center is. The center here is George and the serial killer case. Then George dies. That's frankly the end of this sequence. Later, I'm just going to put that here. So the first couple of scenes are, we meet George, we understand that he's hunting a mystery, and what he does is he's going to promise that he's got a special new clue. He has developed new information, and as one does when one is in broadcasting, you try and hype it. You try and you put it off, and you say, we're going to be doing a big reveal soon, and this is actually what gets poor George killed, because by saying, I've got a new clue, but not making it public, he inspires Zach to come in, swoop in, murder him, and take this clue so that he can be the podcaster who discovers it. That is what we're going to find out at the very end of the series. At the moment, we just know that Zach dies grotesquely and fascinatingly. He is poisoned. Now, the next thing that we need to do is introduce Madeline and find out what the police are doing about this. I want to get right away to the idea that the police are not on the case, or at least they're not getting it yet. They think it's a copycat, and they are working on that. But the way we find that out is because the police are talking to Madeline at the crime scene. Madeline, therefore, we will meet. And let's move that now. I am going to find Meet Madeline. Meet Madeline. Meet Madeline. Now we are going to take this and we are going to move it. Oh, see, this is what happens when you're doing big type. I can't do it this way. I'm going to have to shrink this down. Okay. For the moment, I am going to have to, you're going to have to watch me working with much smaller type. Okay. So Meet Madeline, and we cut that and we bring that here. The thing I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be trying to get the flow of the show, the pilot episode, begin to lock that down. Because right now I've got so many bits and pieces in this outline document, I can't really follow it. I can't really start to make decisions. So, this is who she is in notes. And we're just going to try and tighten this up a little. Because one of the things I need to do is be able to look at this and judge it. So, I am now... Okay, this really doesn't need to be here in this form. Okay. So, we meet Madeline with the police at the crime scene. And now... look what we've done. We took two scenes. We took two scenes, Madeline and the police, and we made it into one scene. Now we are meeting Madeline and getting the police information. This is how you structure. You start to take your pieces and you try and compress them and make them dramatic. We meet Madeline. She is plunged into the deep end. We don't meet Madeline like... she's at her job and she gets the call and she hears that he's dead and then she has to like react to that and then she goes to the crime scene. Nah, too many scenes, no need. Cut right to the action. The action is Madeline getting the news from the police that they are on the case and dealing with it. All right, so then we need to cut away from her. We're going to have to... after police leave, see Madeline starting to cope with George's death. We're going to want to take a little bit of time to get to know Madeline a little bit. One of the things that we're going to get to know here is talking to the police, we will find out that she is. So we make this into action. Talking when she is talking, her talking to the police, we will learn a lot of exposition about her. All right. So now we have, we will deal with her shock at finding out that George has made her next of kin, which leads to her being responsible / executor. That's all got to be coming at her right when we see when we meet her. Now later, when you guys aren't watching, because I don't want to waste your time with formatting, but I'll be cleaning up a lot of this. Anyway, so the first sequence is setting up the world, setting up the killer, setting up George, watching him get murdered. Next sequence is meeting Madeline, understanding that she is being brought in to deal with this. She has not seen George in decades. We understand that this is pulling her back into a part of her life that she has thought she left behind. Then we leave that world. Hang on, and I will see. Oh, Troy's got an interesting question. Since I would be writing and directing my short film, would I put director notes in the outline document, or would it be better to make a completely new file? Excellent question. Yes, make a new file. Directing and writing are separate jobs. And right now you want to focus on the writing, and you want to make sure that your outline is a good working document as a writer. By the time you are really working as a director, you will be working from the script, not the outline. I mean, you may actually make I would advise you to make a sort of director's outline from it. But the truth is, the director works from the script. The outline is what you do before you have the script. So if you're getting directing ideas, you want to start a separate document, put them there. Make the outline about creating this script that's going to be so good that even if you don't direct it, it's got all the magic in there. Here's something I do that might help you. So far, so good. Hang on. I'm going to format this as brightly colored. Okay, there we go. And make it super big. I do this. I find it's like a bookmark. Oh, look at that. Okay, let me get rid of this. Okay. When I am working in a document, it's a long thing. I like to put a mark like from here, from the beginning to here. I'm pretty comfortable and I'm moving through it. So I just put this as like a marker. And as I go, I will move it down. It just helps me because, what if I step away for a couple days or even one day? It's like, where was I? So far, so good is my way of telling myself, this is where you need to work. So far, so good. Now I am going to meet Zach. Hold on. Okay. Oops. Wrong one. So now we are going to meet Zach and the team. Okay, so we've introduced the crime. Now we introduce Madeline, who is going to be one of our two main characters. And now we are going to meet the other main character, Norman, who is in this community. So there's going to be, once again, just like I did with the podcast, I'm trying to layer in, we're meeting the community at work. They are working on this crime. And then we are going to see the action is that Zach proposes taking over where George left off. That they believe that George was murdered because of his investigation and they want to take it over. Which is, of course, we'll later find out was Zach's whole plan all along. So that's the action of the scene. That's the center. The thing you want to do in these headlines, the headline of the scene in the outline, is you want to get the central action, not just the central purpose. So eventually I will be rewriting some of these, like meet the serial killer case as George works on the podcast. Well, that's actually pretty good because the action there is George is recording his podcast. That's what he's doing. What you always want to have in these big headlines is what are they doing? What is happening here? What is the action? Every scene has one central action, the one thing that is being accomplished in the story more than any other. It'll have others, but there's always, I try to find always one that you say, this is what this is about, and that's what your headline is. Okay, and then you try and keep them short. Ideally, they're one line. In this case, because I've got this set at 22 points so that it's readable on your screen, it's hard to get it all into one line. Usually, I set this at about 14 points type, and you can get quite a bit in there. All right, so they meet on Zoom. This is something that I decided while you weren't looking, because I was thinking, how do we show an online community working? You don't want it to be typed on a screen, although it could have been a kind of chat thing, but I want them to meet on Zoom as the way that we get to watch them interacting. Just because it's better in a cinematic medium to show people doing stuff, not to just be reading words. So this is just a summary of who they are. So I will make that notes. I need to, here's a note to myself. I don't have a name for this community yet, but I will. And then this is actually going to be a sub part of this scene, so I'm going to take it out of here. We're going to meet Norman lurking because he is writing about these people. We don't know yet that that's why he's lurking. The main action of this scene is Norman is beginning to object or protest what Zach is saying he's going to do because, and this is important, we need to find this, he doesn't want them to bother Madeline. In other words, okay, Zach is explaining the situation to everyone, right? Because Zach is making a proposition here. The action of this scene is Zach is telling everyone, hey, George was murdered. There must be because of something in his files. Let's take this over. So I am going to add here. What happens is, while Zach is explaining, George's ex-wife has taken over the files. He's going to show us something, a news clip maybe, or photos that he has, or whatever, however he's figured out who Madeline is. He's saying, this woman does not want to give us these files. We have to do something about it. And that provokes Norman. So we've got dramatic action. The point is that Norman is going to be provoked by Zach's desire to get the files from Madeline, to intervene, which he has never done before, he's just lurked, but to actually go there and protect Madeline, which is how our story really gets going. So, Norman falls in love with Madeline when he sees Zach's info on her and her refusal to turn over the files. So that's what's going on here. So now we can move. So far, so good. Look, this is the process. This is what I wanted to show you guys. What you start to do is put the scenes in order. So now, I may return to this and add things or subtract them, but what you want to do is start to be able to go through this outline and tell yourself the story. That's what you're doing when you do work on an outline. You're essentially writing it down to tell yourself the story so that you can later turn it into scenes in script form. I'm going to take a second to say hello to Ondong. I do not know how to pronounce that. Ondong. If you get a chance, let me know how to pronounce that. But just found this Just found this channel through the interview on Film Courage. Hope to catch up with all the streams. I hope so too. I like that. That is great. Welcome. Thanks for showing up. We are learning to get our outlines in order. So, like this is just a bit, this next scene, which is Zach and Norman discuss journalism. And, you know, I apologize. I am going to put everything back to 18 point because it's just too hard for you to read. I bet that's easier for you to read. I could be wrong, but I believe it. Alrighty. So this is just this cool little bit. That's not for now. What we need to do is I'm going to add one more scene before I'm going to stop, because we're going to have run through a half hour and I'm going to do something about the Ask Me Anythings. But right now, okay, so we've got to So Far So Good, which weirdly now is too small. So what happens after we see, and this is going to be something we're going to have to shrink down. The outline is a place where you slowly but surely cook down your ideas into specific actions, which are in scenes that you can then write. Right now, I got a lot of stuff in here that isn't action. I'm going to find a way to do that over time. But right now, we know that Zach... Okay, this is in the past. We're going to have to figure out what to do about that. Asked. I believe this is going to be something that Zach asked. In other words, we don't want to have a whole scene where we show her saying no, when we can just cut to the chase. An expression that really is sort of distracting. But the idea is, if Zach is going to propose taking over the podcast, he's going to do this because he's already become frustrated with his inability to get the files. That's the key to this, is he needs these files to take over. And so he is going to tell them that he asked Madeline and she refused. And so in telling them, that will introduce Madeline to Norman when Zach is describing her and portraying her. And that means that the next action that we have here among all our stuff is Zach assigns someone to go get them, which is what is going to provoke Norman. So we put that here, and look at that. We have got a string of scenes. We are starting by meeting the serial killer topic in a podcast, which George is recording. Then George dies. Then we cut to, he's dead. His ex-wife has been called. The police are talking to her. At the crime scene, we get to know her, and we get to understand that she has not seen him in a long time. And we catch up on whatever the police want to tell us about the case, which is that they believe that the original murderer is being copycatted. Gonna have to work a bit on that police stuff. We see Madeline dealing. In fact, we may see Zach call her, visit her, bug her here. We may do that. We may actually be able to get that in here. Then we cut to, sorry, was that loud? We cut to the team, Norman and the team reacting to this. So sequence 1, the murder. Sequence 2, Madeline dealing with it. Sequence 3, Zach saying, we want to take this over, but Madeline is in the way. You see, there's a progress already of story, a progress of putting together the pieces. A story is what happens when different people have needs that are in conflict. And that, I believe, is a good place to start to sum up and stop. A story happens when somebody needs something, somebody wants something, and so they're starting to do something, and that brings them into conflict, usually with other people, sometimes with volcanoes or oceans, but usually with other people. It is these 6 questions. Who is it about? It is about Madeline and Norman and Zach, but especially Madeline and Norman. What do they want? Madeline wants to resolve these issues raised by George's death, and eventually she wants to solve the mystery. Norman wants to protect Madeline from these crazy people. And so we've started to lay out this set of conflicting desires. We know that George wanted to solve the mystery and was about to when he got murdered. Zach wants to take this over and solve the mystery. Madeline is standing in Zach's way because she wants to resolve this case and doesn't trust him. And Norman wants to help Madeline and protect Madeline from Zach. So already everybody's desire is intersecting with everyone else's desire. That's a story. Okay, we are going to stop now. I am going to, briefly, you know what? I don't have it here. Question. It's not an off-topic question, actually. I mentioned using 5 separate files and said I plan to make a video about them. Yes, I made it. It's called How to Organize a Project. One of my videos, I don't have the thumbnail right here, is called How to Organize a Project. But what I can show you is how I organize a project. I divided it into an outline. That's the working document that I've been showing. I have a whole video, how to outline. I have these notes. The notes document is where I just riff to myself. Here, I'll show you a brief example of it. I just type questions and answers to myself. I literally talk to myself on the page. The more that you can get used to writing things down, the better. Look at this. We got this. Write it down. Write it down. The work comes when it has a place to go, when you have a format in which to put it. Write it down. Okay, so that's what notes are for. My notes are just literally, we've already got 41 pages of notes on this, and we really haven't been working that long on it. This thing becomes long, it becomes hundreds of pages, and you never look back. Anything that's good, you take out and you put, trash trucks again, sorry. You take anything that's good, you copy it, you paste it into the other documents. The overview is like the Bible. Research is a folder in which you put research. And then there's text. That's the other one. The text eventually will become where you write the script. Right now, it's empty. Archive is just a place where I throw all the old stuff, like older versions of the outline. But really, it's outline, overview, notes, text, research. The scene list I will explain another time. And that answers that question quite well, I believe. Okay. And now we're going to do another question. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop this live stream and start another one. like hang in there if you want. Just come back in a minute, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this one because this is the step-by-step. All these AMAs I'm going to do in a new one, because that way I can put a different thumbnail on it. And when someone is looking for these, most of the people who are watching these are going to be watching them not live, and they're going to need a way to sort through my big list of thumbnails and say, oh, I want to watch that one. So, Troy, I see your question, which is, if I only have one person in my film, would I be able to still use conflict effectively? Yes, you absolutely can do that. I am going to take a little screenshot of this question, and I'm going to answer it in a minute. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Please hang out or come back. I am going to start another live screen in just a minute, and it is going to be Ask Me Anything.